I started a billion-dollar staffing agency after my family called me unemployable. Now my cousin, ex-fiancée, and parents are furious I blacklisted them from every job in the industry. Hi lovelies. Please support us by subscribing and letting us know where you're tuning in from. Now let's dive back into the story. They say you can't choose your family, but nobody tells you what to do when your family chooses to destroy you. I'm sitting in my corner office on the 42nd floor, overlooking a city that once felt impossible to conquer, and I can still hear my mother's voice from that Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago. Maya, sweetie, maybe it's time to accept that corporate life just isn't for you. The turkey was cold by then. So was the room. My cousin Jessica smirked from across the table, twirling her wine glass like she was in some movie. She'd just gotten promoted to senior recruiter at Henderson & Associates, the biggest staffing firm in the region. My ex-fiancé Marcus sat beside her. Yeah, you read that right. Beside her. They'd been sleeping together for 6 months, but I didn't know that yet. What your mother means, my father added, folding his napkin with surgical precision, is that you've been let go from 3 positions in 2 years. Perhaps entrepreneurship isn't realistic either. I'd come to dinner hoping to share my business plan. Instead, I got an intervention. My sister Lauren jumped in next. Girl, just get a normal job. Stop embarrassing us with these wild schemes. She'd brought her new boyfriend, someone from her law firm. He looked uncomfortable. Should have. The room spun. My hands shook. I'd been laid off, yes, but through no fault of my own. Twice from companies that went under. Once from a merger. But facts didn't matter here. They'd already written my story and it ended with me as the family failure. Jessica laughed, actually laughed, and said the words that detonated my old life. Face it, Maya. You're unemployable. Even I wouldn't hire you. Marcus squeezed her hand. My engagement ring suddenly felt like a shackle. I left that dinner at 8:47 p.m. I remember because I checked my phone in the parking lot, mascara running, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. The temperature had dropped to 38 degrees. I could see my breath fogging the windshield. I didn't go home. Home was the apartment I shared with Marcus, and I knew, suddenly, completely, that I couldn't face him without falling apart entirely. Instead, I drove to Sheila's house. Sheila Washington had been my mentor during my brief stint at my second job, before the company folded. She was 63, a black woman who'd climbed through an industry that tried to bury her at every turn. When she opened her door and saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She just pulled me inside. Tell me everything, she said, pouring bourbon I didn't ask for but desperately needed. I did. Every humiliating word. Every dismissive look. Jessica's cruelty. Marcus's betrayal that I'd confirmed with my own eyes. I'd seen the text notification flash on his phone weeks ago. Can't wait for tonight, baby, with a kiss emoji. From Jessica's number. Sheila listened. Then she asked one question. What do you actually want, Maya? The answer came without thinking. I want to prove them all wrong. Every single one of them. She slid a napkin across her kitchen table. Then let's build something they can't ignore. We worked until 3 a.m., sketching a staffing model that addressed every gap I'd witnessed in the industry. Personalized placement. Psychological assessments. Skills verification that actually meant something. By dawn, we had the skeleton of what would become Apex Talent Solutions. I went home at 6 a.m. Marcus was asleep, sprawled across our bed like he owned it, like he owned me. I stood in the doorway and felt nothing. No love, no anger, just a cold clarity that scared me with its intensity. I'd spent the drive rehearsing confrontations, imagining screaming matches, but standing there, I realized he wasn't worth my words. Instead, I grabbed his phone from the nightstand. He'd never changed his passcode. My birthday, the irony thick enough to choke on. The messages with Jessica went back 8 months. 8 months of I love you, and she has no idea, and detailed plans about their future. Including one from 2 weeks ago. Once you dump her, we can finally stop hiding. I screenshotted everything. emailed them to myself. Then I packed methodically. Clothes, documents, my grandmother's jewelry he'd always said was ghetto. I took exactly half our savings, $12,000 I'd contributed fully while he'd been between opportunities. He woke up as I was loading my car. Maya? What are you doing? Leaving. Don't contact me. Babe, what? You're being dramatic. I held up his phone, showing him his own messages. His face went gray. I can explain. No need. Tell Jessica congratulations. On both the promotion and the downgrade. His mouth opened, closed. I drove away and never looked back at him. But I looked back at that building, that life, that version of myself who'd accepted crumbs. She was dead now. Good riddance. Starting a business with $12,000 and a dream sounds romantic until you're eating ramen for the 6th consecutive week and your car has been repoed. Sheila let me crash in her spare room, refusing rent. Just build something that matters, she'd say, heading to her own job each morning while I worked from her kitchen table, cold calling companies who hung up the moment they heard new staffing agency. Month 3, I landed my first client. A mid-sized tech company desperate for qualified developers. I'd found their job posting at 2 a.m. during one of my sleepless scrolling sessions. The hiring manager, David Chin, was drowning in unqualified applicants. I promised him 5 perfect candidates in 2 weeks. He laughed but gave me a shot because, in his words, you sound hungry and hungry people work hardest. I delivered 7 candidates in 10 days. He hired 3. Word spread. But success has a way of reaching the wrong ears. 6 months and Jessica called. I answered because I'm petty enough to want to hear her voice when she realized who she'd underestimated. So you're actually doing this staffing thing? He sounded amused, not impressed. I have 17 clients and 63 successful placements this quarter. Silence. Then, look, Marcus and I are getting married. Mom thought you should know before the invitations go out. My mother knew. My mother had known they were together and approved their marriage before ever apologizing for enabling Jessica's cruelty. The realization hit like a physical blow. Congratulations, I managed. I hope you're both very happy. Rejection sharpens you or breaks you. I chose sharp. After Jessica's call, I worked with a fury that scared even Sheila. 18-hour days became my normal. I mapped every staffing agency, every corporate HR department, every hiring manager in a 3-state radius. I learned their pain points, their budgets, their secret frustrations with existing vendors. Then I met Richard Ashford at a networking mixer I'd crashed with a borrowed blazer and knockoff heels. He was CEO of Titanium Industrial, a manufacturing conglomerate with 73 facilities nationwide. His company spent $4 million annually on staffing services spread across 16 different agencies. The inefficiency drove him insane. What if, I said, cornering him by the mediocre shrimp display, you had one partner who could handle everything? Customized pipelines for each facility, predictive analytics for seasonal needs, and a price point that saves you 30% annually. He looked at my cheap shoes and wrinkled blazer. You're new. I'm hungry. And I'm better than anyone you're working with because I actually care about outcomes, not just commissions. He gave me 2 weeks to prove it. I delivered a proposal that mapped his entire workforce needs for the next fiscal year, identified cost redundancies, and included testimonials from all 17 of my current clients. He signed a 2-year contract worth $700,000 annually. Apex Talent Solutions suddenly had legitimacy, and I had my foot in the door with enterprise clients. Success bought me things: a decent apartment, a reliable car, clothes that didn't scream struggling. But it didn't buy me peace. My phone stayed silent except for client calls. No family. No friends from that old life. Just Sheila, my growing team of 4 recruiters, and an emptiness that work couldn't quite fill. Until my mother called 14 months after the Thanksgiving disaster. Maya, your father's retiring next month. We're having a celebration dinner. It would mean a lot if you came. I should have said no. But underneath the scar tissue, I was still that girl who wanted her parents' approval. So I went, wearing a designer dress I'd bought specifically to show them I'd survived their dismissal. The restaurant was upscale. Everyone was there. Jessica clinging to Marcus like he might evaporate, Lauren with her lawyer boyfriend turned fiancé, cousins who'd always treated me like background noise. My father hugged me stiffly. My mother air-kissed both cheeks. Jessica's eyes narrowed when she saw my dress. So my Uncle Bernard started, still doing that little staffing hobby? It's not a hobby. We're projected to hit $3 million in revenue this year. The table went quiet. Jessica's fork clattered against her plate. $3 million? That's impossible. You've only been operational for 14 months. We have 42 corporate clients and a 93% placement success rate. My father's expression shifted. Not to pride. To calculation. That's quite impressive. You know, Jessica's been struggling at Henderson and Associates. New management. Perhaps you're hiring. The absolute audacity of that man. That table. That family. They'd called me unemployable, watched me bleed, then had the nerve to ask for jobs the moment they realized I'd built something valuable. I looked at Jessica, who suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. At Marcus, who'd cheated on me with her. At my parents, who'd enabled every bit of it. Actually, I said, voice steady, I'm always looking for talented people. Send me your resumes. My mother beamed. Jessica looked suspicious but hopeful. I left that dinner with something dangerous growing in my chest. Not quite revenge, but its more sophisticated cousin, strategic justice. They sent their resumes within days. Jessica's was impressive on paper. 5 years at Henderson, 70 placements annually, relationships with major clients. Marcus included a note. I know things ended badly, but I've grown. I'd love a chance to prove myself professionally. I scheduled interviews. Professional. Thorough. I even brought in my recruiter Sarah to make it legitimate. Jessica interviewed first, confident, polished, talking about her extensive network and industry reputation. Marcus fumbled through his, clearly unprepared, probably assuming our history would grease the wheels. I thanked them both and said I'd be in touch. Then I did something that would define the next phase of my life. I made a call to Richard Ashford. Then to Davidson. Then to every client I'd ever served. I didn't badmouth Jessica or Marcus. I just asked a simple question. If someone applies to work with you who previously treated you or your colleagues unprofessionally, would you want to know? Everyone said yes. So I started building a different kind of database. What nobody tells you about the staffing industry is that it's smaller than you think. 6 degrees of separation becomes 3. Everyone knows everyone, and reputation is currency more valuable than gold. I'd spent 18 months building mine by being reliable, honest, and ruthlessly competent. Now I was about to spend that capital in a way that would either elevate me or destroy everything. I didn't blacklist Jessica and Marcus overtly. That would be lawsuit territory and beneath the player I'd become. Instead, I expanded my services. Reference verification and professional background checks became part of our premium package. Clients loved it because I'd uncovered several resume lies that saved them from bad hires. When Jessica's name appeared in systems, and it did frequently because Henderson was hemorrhaging staff after their management shakeup, my team flagged concerns. Not lies, just cultural fit questions and client feedback from previous placements. All technically accurate. She'd burned bridges everywhere, I just made sure potential employers saw the smoke. Marcus was easier. His work history had gaps he'd explained away with consulting that never existed. One verification call revealed he'd been terminated for harassing a coworker. The truth was always there, I just made sure it followed him. 3 months after our family dinner, Jessica called, furious. What did you do? I've applied to 14 positions and I keep getting rejection emails within days. I haven't done anything to you, Jessica. Maybe the industry just recognizes your value accurately now. You're blackballing me. I'll sue you. For what? Telling the truth when clients request background information? Good luck with that. She hung up. My hands shook. Not from guilt, but from the sheer power of boundaries finally enforced. Apex Talent Solutions wasn't just growing. It was metastasizing into something larger than I'd imagined. By month 24, we had offices in 3 cities, 87 employees, and clients that read like a Fortune 500 directory. Revenue hit 12 million. I'd gone from ramen to remarking on which private jet service offered better amenities. But empire building has costs beyond capital. My relationship with Sheila, the woman who'd saved me, grew strained. She'd watch me work with an expression I couldn't decode. Finally, one night over the bourbon that had become our ritual, she said, "Maya, baby, I'm worried about you." "Why?" "Everything's working. We're about to close a deal with Meridian Corp that'll put us at 18 million annually. You're not happy. You're successful, but you're not happy. There's a difference." I wanted to argue, but the words stuck. Was I happy? Or was I just winning? The distinction felt irrelevant when I could barely remember what happiness felt like before it all went wrong. "They don't deserve your energy," Sheila continued. "Jessica, Marcus, your parents, they're living rent-free in your head and you're letting them dictate your choices. I'm not. You expanded into Henderson's territory specifically to undercut them. You bought the building across from your parents' house. You're fighting ghosts, Maya." She was right, but I wasn't ready to hear it. Instead, I threw myself deeper into work, acquiring 2 smaller agencies and launching an AI-driven matching platform that revolutionized how we connected talent with opportunities. The industry noticed. Forbes called. So did the Wall Street Journal. And so did my family, smelling blood in the water. The article came out on a Tuesday, 30 under 30, How Maya Thompson Built a Staffing Empire from Nothing. My face, my story, my revenue numbers all laid out for the world. By Wednesday my phone exploded. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Childhood friends who'd ghosted me after the 3rd layoff. And my mother, voice bright with artificial pride. "Sweetheart, we saw the article. Your father and I always knew you'd do something special." The gaslighting was so complete, so audacious, I actually laughed. "You called me unemployable 2 years ago." "Oh honey, that was just tough love. We were motivating you." Lauren called next, asking if I could invest in her husband's startup. My uncle Bernard wanted me to hire his son who'd flunked out of college twice. And Jessica sent an email with "apology and opportunity" in the subject line. She was sorry for any misunderstandings and hoped we could move forward professionally because she'd developed a revolutionary approach to talent acquisition that would be perfect for Apex. I read that email 7 times, each read sharpening the blade of my resolve. They hadn't changed. They just recalculated my value and decided I was worth pretending to respect. That night, I made a decision that would cement my reputation as either brilliant or monstrous, depending on who you asked. I scheduled a family dinner. My treat. 5-star restaurant. Private room. Every single person who'd dismissed me would be there, and I'd give them exactly what they'd asked for. My attention. Just not the kind they expected. They came dressed in their finest, faces glowing with greed poorly disguised as familial love. The private dining room at Marcello's held 23 people. My parents, siblings, cousins, assorted spouses, and 2 family friends who'd somehow heard about the celebration. They'd all assumed I was sharing my success, maybe offering jobs or investments. The champagne flowed. Appetizers circulated. My mother gave a toast about family always believing in each other. I stood when dessert arrived, glass in hand. The room quieted. "Thank you all for coming. I wanted to gather everyone who matters to me to share some news." Smiles bloomed around the table. 2 years ago you told me I was unemployable. That I was an embarrassment. That my dreams were delusions. The smiles faltered. "Jessica, you laughed in my face. Marcus, you cheated on me with her. Mom, Dad, you enabled all of it, then acted shocked when I stopped coming around." "Maya, sweetie, this isn't the time," my mother started. "Actually, this is exactly the time. Because here's what I've learned building Apex. Character matters more than talent. Integrity beats credentials, and toxic people poison everything they touch. So when you all came asking for jobs, investments, opportunities, I did my due diligence. Jessica, you've burned every bridge in the industry. Marcus, you're unhireable because you harassed colleagues. Lauren, your husband's startup is a tax dodge. Mom, Dad, You raised children who value money over morals, and now you're shocked the crops you planted taste bitter. My father stood. We don't have to listen to this. You're right. You don't. But you'll listen to this. I've built the largest staffing network in the region. My word carries weight. And I've ensured that every single one of you faces the same struggles I did. The fallout was nuclear. My mother called me cruel and vindictive. My father threatened legal action until his lawyer explained I'd broken no laws. Jessica posted on social media about jealous relatives, until Henderson's HR department suggested she stop drawing attention to herself, given the pending investigation into her falsified placement numbers. That detail had cost Henderson 2 major clients and nearly $3 million in liability. Marcus tried the sympathy route, showing up at my office claiming he'd hit rock bottom and needed help. Security escorted him out when he wouldn't leave. The video went viral on LinkedIn, ironically boosting Apex's reputation for having strong boundaries. But the real consequences weren't what I'd anticipated. Yes, Jessica couldn't find work in staffing. Marcus had to move states for employment. My parents' social circle buzzed with gossip about their difficult daughter. But something else happened that I hadn't prepared for. I felt empty. The revenge I'd engineered so carefully, the justice I'd delivered so completely left me hollow. Sheila noticed. He always did. You won, Maya. But what did you win? They can't hurt anyone else the way they hurt me. That's protection, not victory. And it's keeping you trapped in the past as much as they are. I promoted my team. Sarah became COO. Michael took over operations. Jennifer ran our new AI division. Apex didn't need me day to day anymore. I'd built a machine that ran without me, which meant I had to face the question I'd been avoiding. Who was Maya Thompson when she wasn't proving people wrong? The answer scared me. I didn't know. 3 years after that Thanksgiving, I stood in my corner office watching snow fall on a city I'd conquered. Apex Talent Solutions was worth $1.2 billion after our acquisition by Talent Corp International. I'd negotiated a deal that kept me as CEO with complete autonomy, made my team wealthy, and secured Sheila a VP position she richly deserved. Forbes called it the most impressive bootstrapped success story of the decade. But my parents weren't at the closing celebration. Neither was my sister, my cousins, or anyone who'd shared my blood and rejected my worth. They weren't blacklisted anymore. I'd removed those flags years ago when I realized revenge was eating me alive. But the damage was permanent. Jessica worked in a different industry now. Marcus had moved across the country. My mother sent birthday cards I couldn't bring myself to open. Sheila found me after the party, still wearing her gala dress, carrying 2 glasses of bourbon. You did it, baby. Yeah. I did. I didn't sound victorious. I sounded tired. So what now? I don't know. I built this whole empire to prove I wasn't unemployable, and now? I don't know who I am without that fight. He pulled me close. Then maybe it's time to find out. Not Maya Thompson, the woman who proved them wrong. Just Maya. The woman who survived, who built something beautiful from ashes, who deserves to rest now. I cried then, really cried for the first time in 3 years. For the family I'd lost. For the woman I'd become. Powerful but lonely, successful but isolated. For the cost of empire nobody warns you about when you're building it from rage and rejection. I'd won every battle and lost something I couldn't name. The snow kept falling, beautiful and cold like me. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Have you ever had to cut off toxic family? Drop your story in the comments. And remember, success is the best revenge, but healing is the better goal. Let's talk about it.